Imperial Japan's technology is such a weird topic. Some of it was honestly sad, while others amazing. In this video, we'll discuss the latter. Slash that like button, and let's begin. The I-400 class of submarine, also called the Tokugawa Sensui-kan, were quite literally the largest submarines of World War II and actually stayed the biggest until the 1960s. With a length of 122 meters and a beam of 12 meters, this was truly a behemoth of the time. The rest of the dimensions are on the screen now. So, where did this behemoth come from? Admiral Yamamoto, after the bombing at Pearl Harbor, envisioned a plan to take the war to the United States. He wanted the ability to launch air attacks via submarine. Now, these attacks would be incredibly shocking as they would be done without warning and would cause the American public to panic and hopefully to get them to back out from the war. He would task Captain Kameto Kuroshima to make a study to see how realistic it was. On January 13th, 1942, Yamamoto submitted the proposal to Fleet Headquarters and it was accepted. 18 were planned, but only 3 would be completed and 2 would make it to sea. For these air attacks to be possible, the submarine would have a cylindrical hangar that was watertight. Its size was 31 meters long by 3.5 meters wide. Inside, it would have space for 3 aircraft. The aircraft in question was the 2-seat Aichi M6A Seiran. On the screen now is a drawing of how the plane was supposed to fold up in the hangar. A well-trained crew of 4 was expected to unfold the wings and attach the pontoons, which, by the way, could be jettisoned in flight if needed, and have it ready in under 7 minutes, where it then be launched via hydraulic catapult. Its armament was either a 865 kilogram bomb, or the rough equivalent weight, and one 13mm Type 2 machine gun to be used by the observer. Ideally, the craft's pontoons would allow it to land next to the submarine, where it'd be pulled up from the water by a crane on board. Otherwise, these planes would be ditched and the crews picked up, and the submarine gone by the time the enemy showed up. Even though this submarine's main focus was launching surprise air attacks, it was capable in its own right. It had 8 torpedo tubes in the bow, 4 above and 4 below. On top of its hangar was 3 waterproof Type 96 triple mount 25mm autocannons, a single autocannon near the bridge, and 1 Type 11 140mm deck gun after the hangar with a range of about 15 kilometers. If we get into more of its design features, besides being able to travel the world 1.5 times, which is by itself pretty impressive, we see a special trim system that allowed it to be underwater without moving. This system was apparently rather noisy though. It also had 2 sets of demagnetization cables that were meant to protect it from magnetic mines. It also had a special anechoic, I might say that wrong, coating, which was meant to diffuse sonar pulses as well as dampen reverb within the hull, thereby making it incredibly hard to detect while submerged. The coating was based off of German research. However, its composition was different. Apparently, the Japanese felt that they had improved on this mixture. However, we can really only speculate now. I will say that America had no idea that these subs existed until after the war, and that they were surrendered. So that's gotta mean something, right? The subs were also equipped with 2 12.2 meter long German-made periscopes that were considered to be the best available at the time. Now, despite having some impressive features, there was also some drawbacks to this vessel, such as the fact that when it was surfaced, it was considered difficult to maneuver and was easily seen from air and sonar when also on the surface. The vessel also didn't have air conditioning or flushable toilets, and the sleeping quarters were rather small, and that meant a lot of the crew actually slept in the hallways at times. You know, it's extremely fortunate that these behemoths never got to carry out some of the operations that they were planned for, such as a surprise attack on the Panama Canal that had started to be planned for in 1943. If successful, it would have severely affected American supply lines to the Pacific. In January 1944, Commander Fujimori personally interrogated an American POW who told him that the security had gotten lax and that the air patrols were practically non-existent. The Japanese estimated that a successful attack would render the canal unusable for 6 months. 4 submarines would be needed for the attack, 2 of which would be the I-400 class submarines. The other would be Type AM submarines. In April 1945, Captain Arazumi decided that for this attack to be successful, the Seiran pilots would need to make kamikaze ramming attacks against the canal gates. It should be pointed out that other than the flight leader, the rest of the flight crew had no idea. When one of the pilots found out that they were supposed to do this, they confronted the flight leader. From there, they would practice bombing runs instead. By June, training ended, and they were set to proceed on the estimated 2-month-long trip to attack Panama. And then Okinawa fell. The Naval General Staff decided that the attack would have little effect on the war at the time. It was decided instead that they should be used to attack the American aircraft carriers at the Uluthi Atoll. Basically, these same subs would launch kamikaze raids. They would even have their planes painted silver with American stars. The pilots would protest this as they felt it was dishonorable. After the first raid, they were to head to Hong Kong, be loaded with more planes and new flight crews. And from there, they would head to Singapore to refuel and then continue the attacks. I assumed that this would be repeated as many times as they could. On the 16th of July, one of the Type AM subs, I-13, was detected on the surface of the water and then sunk by the Americans. The Japanese would surrender before the raids were carried out. There was one other thing that these subs were planned for, and this one is genuinely terrifying. The plan was called Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. The Japanese would use biological weapons on the United States. Aircraft would be launched from the subs near the Southern California coast at night. Once in the air, the planes would drop bombs that would disperse bubonic plague-carrying fleas, and other weapons were also planned. These attacks were estimated to infect the entire western seaboard and kill tens of thousands of people and hospitalize 100,000 more. After this first raid, which was planned for September 22nd, 1945, more would then be planned. Thankfully, the war ended before they actually set out. One could only imagine what kind of terror these things could have unleashed.